The life and legacy of Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi was one of the most controversial leaders of the 20th and 21st centuries. His rule over Libya lasted for more than 4 decades, marked by radical economic policies, an unorthodox political philosophy, international conflicts, and a dramatic downfall. His legacy remains deeply divisive. Some remember him as a dictator, while others see him as a revolutionary leader who transformed Libya. Early life and military rise. Muammar Muhammad Abu Minyar al-Gaddafi was born in 1942 near Sirte, a desert region of Libya. He came from a poor Bedouin family of the Gadafi tribe. Despite his humble beginnings, Gaddafi was highly ambitious and politically aware from a young age, idolizing Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser, the champion of Arab nationalism. He joined the Libyan Military Academy in Benghazi in 1963, later receiving additional training in the UK. During this period, Libya was ruled by King Idris I, who was seen as pro-Western and reliant on foreign powers. Inspired by Nasser's pan-Arab socialist ideology, Gaddafi and a group of young military officers plotted to overthrow the monarchy. The 1969 coup and Gaddafi's rise to power. On September 1, 1969, at the age of 27, Gaddafi led a bloodless coup that deposed King Idris while the monarch was receiving medical treatment in Turkey. Gaddafi took control and declared Libya a republic, officially naming it the Libyan Arab Republic. Upon taking power, he expelled foreign military bases from Libya, nationalized the oil industry, greatly increasing Libya's revenue, implemented socialist policies, redistributing wealth and funding free healthcare and education, abolished political parties, making Libya a one-party state under his control. Gaddafi's political and economic policies. The Green Book and the Third International Theory. In the 1970s, Gaddafi introduced his political ideology in a 3-part book called The Green Book. It rejected both capitalism and communism, proposing a unique system that combined direct democracy with socialist economics and Islamic principles. His vision, called the Third International Theory, proposed 1. Direct democracy through people's committees, eliminating traditional government structures. 2. State-controlled economy, with no private businesses. 3. A rejection of parliamentary democracy, arguing that representative governments were corrupt. Although the theory was meant to empower ordinary Libyans, in practice, it solidified Gaddafi's authoritarian control. Economic reforms and oil wealth. Under Gaddafi, Libya's vast oil reserves were used to develop the country. He improved infrastructure, building roads, schools, and hospitals. He launched the Great Man-Made River Project, an ambitious attempt to provide water to Libya's desert regions. Education and healthcare were made free, increasing literacy rates and life expectancy. Subsidized housing and welfare programs were introduced. However, Gaddafi's economic policies discouraged private enterprise, leading to inefficiency and corruption within the government-controlled economy. Gaddafi on the world stage, ally or enemy? Gaddafi's foreign policy made him both admired and feared. He positioned himself as an anti-Western revolutionary, supporting liberation movements and militant groups worldwide. Support for rebel groups and terrorism accusations. Gaddafi funded and armed various militant groups, including the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, the Irish Republican Army, IRA, separatist movements in Africa and Latin America. This led Western nations to label Libya as a state sponsor of terrorism. The most infamous accusation came after the 1988 Lockerbie bombing, in which Pan Am Flight 103 exploded over Scotland, killing 270 people. Libya was blamed for the attack, leading to sanctions and international isolation. Tensions with the United States and NATO bombing. In the 1980s, tensions between Libya and the United States escalated. In 1986, U.S. President Ronald Reagan ordered airstrikes on Tripoli and Benghazi in retaliation for a bombing in Berlin linked to Libya. Gaddafi's adopted daughter was allegedly killed in the attack, further fueling his anti-Western stance. Attempts at reform and reconciliation, 1999 to 2011. By the late 1990s, Gaddafi sought to repair Libya's international relations. He handed over the suspects in the Lockerbie bombing, leading to the lifting of UN sanctions. In 2003, he abandoned Libya's weapons of mass destruction program, earning temporary favor with the West. Western leaders, including British Prime Minister Tony Blair and U.S. President George W. Bush, welcomed Gaddafi back into diplomatic circles. However, Despite these efforts, his authoritarian rule remained unchanged, and opposition to his leadership grew. The 2011 Libyan uprising and Gaddafi's fall. In 2011, the Arab Spring swept across the Middle East and North Africa. Inspired by uprisings in Tunisia and Egypt, protests erupted in Libya against Gaddafi's government. The protests quickly turned into an armed rebellion. Rebels took control of Benghazi, forming the National Transitional Council, (NTC). Gaddafi's forces responded with brutal crackdowns. The United Nations authorized a no-fly zone, and NATO launched airstrikes against Gaddafi's military. As NATO-backed rebels advanced, Gaddafi fled to his hometown of Sirte, where he made a final stand. On October 20, 2011, he was captured and killed by rebel fighters in chaotic circumstance. Gaddafi's legacy is deeply polarizing. Positive views. He turned Libya into one of Africa's richest nations with high literacy, free healthcare, and infrastructure. Pan-African visionary, he funded the African Union and proposed a united African currency, challenging Western financial dominance. Champion of independence, he resisted Western control, maintaining Libya's sovereignty. Negative views. Dictatorship, his rule was marked by suppression of dissent, secret police, and human rights abuses. Economic mismanagement, his centralized control led to economic stagnation. International isolation, his support for militant groups made Libya a global pariah. Post-Gaddafi Libya, a nation in chaos. Since Gaddafi's death, Libya has struggled with civil war and political instability, competing governments and militias, economic collapse and humanitarian crises, a rise in terrorism and human trafficking. Many Libyans now debate whether they were better off under Gaddafi's rule, as the country remains fragmented and unstable. Conclusion. Muammar Gaddafi remains one of history's most controversial leaders. To his supporters, he was a revolutionary who uplifted Libya and challenged Western imperialism. To his critics, he was a dictator who ruled through oppression and violence. His life and death symbolize the complexities of power, revolution, and governance in the modern world. Thanks for watching. Kindly subscribe for the updates.